What's her name again, Miss?
That's a good question.
Oh, that's crazy. It starts with Phaedra. Yeah! Miss Phaedra! Yo, daughter, a crazy one. Yo, what's good, everybody? This is the Gameday podcast for the Daily Northwestern. Under Cast Corner, I'm the host, Lawrence Price, alongside Skye and Alex. They have returned. Well, clearly we don't have John and Charlotte, but we got half the crew back. We're 3/5. Last week, me and John were on the pod as Northwestern lost against Iowa, going into Ohio State, and they just played Ohio State this past weekend. All three of us were there, or the whole squad was there, except Charlotte was in the stands because it was her birthday. And, it was a very close game in consideration of what we thought it would be, 21-7. Northwestern clearly lost. Maybe I shouldn't say clearly, but, it was a very much closer game than we expected. Would you all say, or how would you evaluate the game, even though Skye was kind of complaining to me about the weather a lot, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
Well, I definitely was not expecting Northwestern to score the touchdown first in the game, and also was not expecting Ohio State to have such a low-scoring performance. Just definitely a lot of key takeaways that it was a little eye-opening, and just like, is Ohio State having a rough period, or like we talked about, we're getting into weather later, but is this something that is Northwestern is making adjustments to get better and stronger for the less remaining games of the season?
I do think that was a question as well. Before, Alex, you get into what you were going to say, but, you kind of got to think about Northwestern's clearly not going to make a bowl game this year. Are they preparing for next year, or are they still competing? Of course, they're trying to compete at the highest level, but is it about getting the younger guys reps over, guys that might have a little bit more experience? Scott's facial reaction was crazy. Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead.
I'd echo a lot of similar statements that Skye said. I think the big thing for me was the success of the direct snap on Northwestern's scoring drive. Ultimately proved its downfall later in the game, which we'll get to. I thought Sullivan did well against one of the nation's best defenses. I would have liked to see him use more. I understand the effects of the weather, which we'll also talk about. But Evan Hull and Cam Porter put up a solid game. It's what you want from your two best running backs, especially in that climate. But there are some question marks surrounding some of the play calling, which has been a concern all year. But I was surprised that the game for so long felt like Northwestern was controlling it a little bit.
And I think that was really a lot we saw in the first half. When Northwestern was first to score, and we're all in the press box, it was just like in shock, like, whoa, Northwestern actually scored first. They actually scored against Ohio State. And you could tell it was really the run game getting going. And, of course, the defense was amazing during the game. But the offense was really getting it going on the ground. It wasn't even the pass game because, as we know, it was 30-mile-per-hour winds, rain coming down, and Evan Hull was showing how much of a game changer he was. So was Brendan Sullivan. But then it just kind of fell apart, I would say. The offense just couldn't get anything going. Of course, Ohio State's defense got even better and better. But it felt like Northwestern was kind of just shooting themselves in the foot. Would you all agree? Or?
Yeah, to be honest, it kind of felt like a snooze fest after the going into the third and fourth quarter. It was just a matter of time before Ohio State got kicking and went into gear. And I just think that Brendan Sullivan, the run game is only going to get us so much further, and Ohio State's defense went into halftime, went into the locker room, picked that out, pointed it out, and came out stronger, and basically made it so much harder for him to use the Wildcat formation, use the run game, use Evan Hull or Cam Porter. So he definitely just has to get better at his passing game, and that's what we saw was lacking in the second half.
That's a much better analogy than in the first week when you talked about stepping on someone's neck. I feel like coming out of halftime and kicking it and those verbs, everything, that's better. But I would agree.
Football to learn.
I mean, I would agree. We saw, or we even talked about before the pod, we saw Northwestern, because of how bad the wind was. One, they weren't kicking field goals. Both teams weren't kicking field goals, but they tried to stick to the run game, right? And that meant trying to be more dynamic and using the Wildcat a lot. But it felt, honestly, I thought that it was more, should just use over excessively. I feel like Coach Bajakian used it too much to where, it's 3 straight plays and it's all Wildcat. You can only do so much. If I know Evan Hull is going to be in the backfield and he's the only one in the backfield, I'm filling the box. If I'm the defensive coordinator, we know exactly what's going to happen, right? So I think that the Wildcat play is effective, but you got to let Sully rock. We saw a few plays where it was just crazy, him just scrambling against the Ohio State defense, throws it across the field to Malik Washington to get the first down. I think that just shows, you took the ball out of his hands a lot at times that maybe you should not have, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I was going to pinpoint this, and you guys both touched on it, but this is how Northwestern started their third quarter. Came out of halftime, direct snap, direct snap, direct snap, direct snap, direct snap. QB keeper, which was on 3rd and 1, not on 4th and 1, 3rd and 1, because I think that's important, and then another direct snap. So you took your quarterback off the field 6 times on your opening drive, and the one time you brought him on, you tried to let him drive through behind 8 or 9 guys in the box. And listen, Ohio State has better athletes. They have more dynamic playmakers.
Unless that's Derrick Henry, I don't want to see that much. If that's Derrick Henry, I understand, because he's like 6'4", going about 22.
I was getting there.
I apologize. Let me hand the rock back off to you.
They have more dynamic playmakers. They all around probably have better top-end talent, which I don't think is hard. I don't think that's an insane take. Obviously, that's not a hot take. But it's not. But like you said, you're going to load 8 guys in the box and then just try and block for Hull. I mean, at some point, you got to. They're scheming for it at that point, and it felt like a team desperately trying to not lose by a bunch of points rather than trying to win a game, and knew that their personnel, for whatever reason, although they say that they believed in them, it didn't feel like they were believing their personnel if you're going back to the same play over and over. It wasn't working. It was beating a dead horse.
I agree. And we haven't transitioned to the defensive play yet, but the defense was playing their tails off, right? And of course, the defense can play so good, but when you're going up against such a great offense like Ohio State, they're going to get those plays. Or there's going to be those one-man breakdowns, which we saw in the second half, where Northwestern is going to give up that big play that could lead to a touchdown. And, it felt like Northwestern wasn't capitalizing on the opportunities that the defense was giving them. But I don't know if you all still want to talk about the offense, but we can transition to the defense and the weather. The weather, we talked about it earlier, but it was 30 miles per hour, between 25 and 35 miles per hour winds the whole entire game. I don't think, from the press box, we can't really see how effective the wind is. I don't think we noticed until we got off the elevator to the media or press conference, and was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then it was downpours between the first and third quarter the whole entire game, which could have affected. Well, it affected clearly both offenses, but the defense played their butt off, I would say. Especially, do you all have some key players that just had a great game? I can name a few, like Cam Mitchell, who had 3 pass breakups. Rod Hurd.
I was just going to say, kind of like you mentioned this in the press conference, but how interesting. Similar weather factor in Penn State. Both defense then and in Saturday's game showed up to play. So is there a trend? Is there something going on between weather and the defense just gets inspired, or are these top-tier offenses struggle with uncontrolled environments?
And if you want to learn more about that, go read my article on the Daily Northwestern about, how the weather and defense and even quotes from the players. But I just had to plug that. But I definitely agree, Alex. Did you want to speak on that at all? Or
And just the effect of the weather?
Yeah, well, actually, I can...
I already know the weather was hard. I was huffing and puffing and...
Oh, my goodness. I tell y'all, we get out of my car. Skye is complaining the whole 10 to 15 minute walk. I'm like, stop complaining. Stop complaining. Oh, my goodness.
I was so cold. And it was crazy because the weather said 60 degrees, but that wind made it feel like 20.
She gonna wear only a dress shirt. No socks.
I'm wearing flats, by the way.
No socks and a dress shirt. And she gonna wonder why it's cold or just very windy. But yeah, I would just say we experienced the effect of the wind. Not as much the rain as well, but I think it's a huge question to ask, and I kind of asked it to Coach Fitz, and he said he responded by saying, you're reading into this, and that's maybe that might not be an issue in his eyes or anything like that, but it's definitely where, okay, the defense has looked its best when the weather has played a factor and helped them. And how in the world are you going to give up only 17 points? So the season low to Penn State, season low with Miami, Ohio, to Penn State, 5 takeaways. Then we come to where the weather's bad. Then we come to Ohio State where the weather's bad again, and you play, only 21 points to the second best team in the country, right? But you go against Iowa, who has the worst offense in arguably college football, and you give up 33 points, or even games before that, like Wisconsin, like Maryland, with the backup quarterback. So I think that's a really huge question you got to ask, and really have to judge that with Coach Jim O'Neill's game. And even, we already talked about Coach Bajakian, but Coach O'Neill, I feel like that's a huge question to ask.
Yeah, it even begs the question whether these defenses, are they stepping up, or is it just the opponent's offenses are stepping down to Northwestern's level of play? C.J. Stroud, Ohio State's arguably the best quarterback in the nation, only threw 76 yards Saturday, which is career low.
Future Detroit Lion or Bryce Young. But also you gotta take into account the win was crazy. Now I said, go ahead.
But if you're a Heisman Trophy candidate, I don't care about no win. You should be able to play in any condition. I'm sorry, you just should.
I'll back him up here. The ball, I
not only was the ball slippery,
my ball knowledge is minimal, but I think I understand physics a little bit. And when he was throwing the ball, I don't think he was probably just. It seemed like he was putting too much on it, and then the wind was carrying it.
The wind was
coming off the lake. It was in excess of 40 miles an hour. Like it was. The conditions were tough,
Okay, so Alex had to leave us, or leave me and Skye, to handle some other duties or business. So us two are gonna finish it off. But we were pretty far into the things. We're actually talking about C.J. Stroud. Skye thought his performance against Northwestern kind of questioned or not he should be in the Heisman conversation. Personally, I think he should still be in the Heisman conversation, but to each his own.
It definitely begs the question. That's going to be like my phrase of the episode, but it kind of is mind-boggling how much the weather did affect him. I know it was 30-mile-per-hour winds, but when you think about it, it's just a quarterback and such the prestigious award of Heisman Trophy. Like, you should be able to play in any condition.
But wouldn't you say everybody has their off day? Like, everybody has an off day, right?
I would, but the ESPN and different sports broadcasters were claiming his game against Penn State was an off game for him. So if that was considered an off game where they scored 44 points?
Yeah.
Then 21 with the career low.
Can you do something for me? 21.
With a career low of 79 yards, what is that? Like, him at that point, I just don't even know. Like,
I wouldn't expect much from someone throwing in 30-mile-per-hour winds as well. Especially the deeper you throw it, the harder it's going to be to, keep it on target. But yeah, I would say credit to Northwestern though. 4 pass breakups in between all, like the secondary. Xander Mueller had one as well. But I would just say, it's going to be very interesting to see how Northwestern's defense compares to, a really good Minnesota team coming up. Did you want to transition into that, or did you want to talk a little bit more about Brendan Sullivan and Mike Bajakian? I think we pretty much touched on that, right? Just because I think it's just about how Northwestern is going to manage allowing Sullivan to have freedom throwing the ball, or is it going to, just being able to control the offense, or is it going to be more Mike Bajakian and his scheme that they want to rock with? I think we saw more of the scheme against Ohio State.
I just think, although Bajakian's scheme is the run game and we want to give Sullivan some more freedom, does he have the skill and the aptitude to pass the ball the way we need him to pass the ball?
Are we talking about Brendan Sullivan?
Yes, I'm talking about Brendan Sullivan. I haven't seen it yet to say that I'm so confident.
Multiple plays where he like that.
just to say that I'm so confident that I would trust his passing game. I can't say that.
Bryce Hurst, their 40-yard connection in his first game against Wisconsin. Back shoulder grab, back shoulder pass. Perfect on the money.
But it's rare dimes.
Malik
rare
Washington
dimes.
deep against Maryland. The game that, who was that? Skye was that.
Rare dimes.
Touchdown. Rare dimes, but you can see the potential is there, right?
I can see the potential, but
it's going to take him time to get.
But at this point, we don't have the time.
The season is over. They got the time.
Then are we just playing now to just play? Are we playing to win or are we playing to play?
Okay. Well, Skye's trying to be in her lawyer bag, asking these questions. I think that you're gonna rock with Sullivan
Shout out Joe Matthewson.
and you know the problems that you're gonna face with a young quarterback. I think that's just because I think two things that he brings to the table: his arm strength. We've seen it from Ryan Holinski has, but his athleticism, Ryan Holinski doesn't have, right? And we've seen as well with Sullivan, just misreads or just bad execution or bad, throwing decisions, kind of like that. But that's just going to come with playing the game more. As I said before, he hasn't been under center for over 2 years. So I feel like that's going to take him time to get used to the college level.
Definitely. Agreed.
Okay, so we actually agree on that. Okay. Now I think we can transition into Minnesota. Northwestern will be traveling to Minnesota, or at least me, Alex, and John will be traveling to Minnesota this weekend to see Northwestern face Minnesota. Again, we talked about before how the weather's going to play a huge factor. High is going to be around 25, 27 degrees. Maybe because Northwestern has already played in weather like that, that will come to their advantage. What do you think? So how big do you think the weather's going to play?
I definitely think it might play an advantage being that cold. If anything, if they are going to do a passing game, quick touches, quick release, because you don't want to be holding that ball with your hands that cold.
Maybe screen plays.
Yeah, okay. Definitely they might rely on the running game, but I think we could see potentially just a lot of mishaps on the miscues. Just
what do you mean by that? Elaborate.
Oh, that's a good question. I just think it'll be interesting to see how the weather, how much that does affect. I mean, being cold, your body moves slower, everything. So from an athlete's standpoint, just seeing how that will affect their body, the wear and tear on them, especially like Evan Hull. But he is a Minnesota native, so he might be used to this. And being home, this might also fuel him, kind of like a home game in a sense. So it'll be a fun game to watch.
I feel like that would have been a great article or feature to write, or profile to write with him going home for this game. But, I mean, I think it's going to be a really good game. Actually, on a side note, I don't know what you're writing about this week, Skye, but I'm going to be talking about, during the press conference Monday, Coach Fitz discussed how, it's all about getting, the plan of just getting your guys older or getting more experience. And so, I asked him about how that can impact, you want to have your guys, your seasoned vets out there, but also getting younger guys, like, for instance, the secondary. You want to have guys like A.J. Hampton, Cam Mitchell, Rod Hurd, Jeremiah Lewis out there, but also you got to get in guys like Darren Johnson, a sophomore who's gotten reps, or even Devin Turner, who was playing major reps against Maryland and Ohio State, and he's a first year. So, you want those guys, and, that's going to lead to some mistakes, but you want to get older, or have that experienced group like we saw in 2020 where they were so successful. So what are you writing about this week?
Well, actually, I was kind of going to pinpoint after that, or ping pong after that a little bit with talking about brotherhood. Evan Hull was talking about that in the press game conference or post-game conference. He was saying how despite the losses, despite everything, the sense of brotherhood has kept them in it, and I feel like that's a good way to look at the remaining games, because we might not see what is going to happen. Like, you don't want to be all down in the dumps, but they could potentially go 1-11 like we predicted.
It's looking like it.
But as long as they have that brotherhood and they stick together, they can potentially help build for a stronger 2023 season.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that's going to help them win a game. Brotherhood go a long way, but you need to perform on the field as well, which we have not seen them do.
I'm thinking like that could help really good for the next season. So yeah, I think that's a good thing to address as they could keep going against these tougher teams. This brotherhood mentality, how that has kept them bonded regardless of the score.
Fast forward to the Minnesota game, but Northwestern, like we said, going to face off against Minnesota this Saturday. What are your expectations or some keys to the game, would you say, Skye? Because I know I know we talked about the run game, but as we all know, the star running back for Minnesota, who had an amazing 2020 season before tearing his ACL, and now he's back for his 6th year. Minnesota currently right now has the second most rushing yards per game in the Big Ten, and Northwestern is either 14th or 15th, last place, right? So that's clearly a huge problem that Northwestern is going to need to establish. And also, I kind of get nervous when we talk about the weather because Minnesota's kind of used to this. Like, this is the type of weather that they signed up for when coming to Minnesota, so they're used to playing in that, especially a guy that's played 6 years in Minnesota. So kind of makes me kind of nervous, and honestly, I don't think Northwestern will be able to take the victory here again. But I do know this: Rod Wave and Mariah the Scientist will be performing on Friday night. I might just have to stop, at the Target Center, just make my rounds around the city and go see them perform because I'll be a little busy, when they do come to Chicago. But
I'll be there in Chicago.
Okay. But what do you think about this game, Scott? What are your general thoughts, would you say?
Yeah, definitely a little concerned, like you mentioned, for Northwestern about the weather, just because Minnesota's used to playing in this environment.
Coach Jim O'Neill's defense looked really good against Ohio State, but when you're going up against another top rushing offense, because even in the game, we didn't know this, but Travion Henderson for Ohio State, their leading tailback, was out. So they went to Marvin or Maven Williams, who was the backup, and he had a pretty solid day, but it took him time to warm up, everything like that. But, Minnesota is very much an established program when it comes to the run game, being known for that. So Northwestern's definitely going to have to play their tails off on defense, but also get the offense going. I mean, we can talk about the offense as well. We haven't seen the offense kind of come into their own yet this season. Would you say?
Yeah, I definitely would agree. We're still waiting to see the offense kind of just kickstart into that gear and get going. It's kind of, we've seen glimpses, like you mentioned, some key passes against Maryland, Wisconsin, even in Ohio State, but it's just like we're still waiting for that next little spark to ignite it. So hopefully maybe if they, have this off this week to practice, they can get going, and if it might just be a battle of the offenses, to be honest, because like you said, Minnesota's defense is pretty middle of the pack, and they let in points, so I think if we hold our own defensive ground, it would just be a battle of the offenses on who can get more and who can kind of just hold the ball in possession until the game clock expires.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Skye. I think it will be the battle of the offenses, especially since, like I said before, Minnesota's kind of in the middle of the pack when it comes to defense wise, but their offense, sacks against, or how many sacks they've given up, they're like at their top 2 in the Big Ten. So that shows you how good their offensive line is. So it's really going to be about the trench game between Northwestern's defensive line versus offensive line. Of course, Northwestern's defensive line and defense look really good against Ohio State, but Minnesota's going to be a little bit more different, especially when the weather is not really going to be such a huge factor it was against Ohio State. We can pretty much wrap things up. I think it's going to be a closer game than last week. I don't know if you thought about the scores this week, but I think it's going to be a little bit of more closer game. But I think it's really going to be on the offense, Northwestern's offense, to get things going because we haven't seen them to their best ability, I would say, since Nebraska, where Ryan Helinski looked really good.
Yeah, I haven't even seen this team, I would say, domestically get into gear. So I don't know if it was something in the water in Dublin and something over there that just ignited them. But hopefully, another game, another reset, another refocus. But they could potentially come together and just get that offense going and hold strong like they did this past week against Ohio State, and stay strong defensively and just make sure to block the running game and go from there.
And I'm not sure exactly what the spread is for the game just yet, but I'm going to stick to my word and go Northwestern's going to go 1-11 on the season. I think Minnesota's their run game's going to be really good. But if they can stop the run game, who knows? It can be a whole different ball game if Northwestern can slow down Mohamed Ibrahim. Baltimore legend, I'll say that, even though he's not as big of a legend as Lamar Jackson in my eyes. But
what can you say? Maryland's just a great state.
Skye's not from Baltimore, just so you all know. She's not.
443 in the 410.
She about what? You're about 2 hours away.
20 minutes.
20 minutes away from Baltimore.
Yes. I'm in the next county over.
So where's your accent?
I'm not from the city. Baltimore County and Baltimore City is a difference.
I know a lot of. I actually watch a podcast.
Where's your Detroit accent?
There's not really a Detroit accent.
There is very much a Detroit accent.
I use Detroit slang, but there's not a Detroit accent. Midwesterners don't have an accent. Or at least Michiganders don't have an accent. I was at my internship
and they were
so
like, false.
I was at my internship and the guy was like, "Oh, where are you from?" And I was like, "Michigan." And he was like, "Oh, okay, I can tell because you don't have an accent." Boom. I think we should just end. Have any further thoughts before we wrap things up? Minnesota has an accent?
Yes.
Have you been to Minnesota before?
No.
Okay. So how would you know? Do you know people from Minnesota?
Correct, I do.
A lot of people?
I know a good few. Get them out.
That's what they all say. But any other thoughts would you say before we wrap things up on the pod, Skye? You gotta give something like John does, John, if you're watching this, I can tell you. It's like you for sure think about what you're gonna say before the ends. Clearly, Skye did not do that this time around, but if Skye doesn't have anything else to say,
sky's the limit. Inhale sky, exhale dreams.
I just want to say shout out to Drake and 21's album. Great album, I thought, being a big Drake fan. Really excited to see them on tour because I will be there. But I think that's really going to wrap it up for us on this pod. Make sure to watch or follow our coverage from the Daily Northwestern this weekend. We're going to be back next week. You already know the deal. I'm Lawrence Price alongside Skye, Swan, and Alex. If he was here, I would say him as well. But hope you have a great rest of your night. So long. See you next time.
Stay warm.
Peace.